I enjoyed Elder Scrolls V Skyrim on release, played it on day one as a digital download on Steam. The journey was a lot of fun. There were some questionable things that happened along the way where I'd stop and go, no, that isn't quite right. But hard focusing on the main story with some light side quests made it an entertaining experience as a whole. Unfortunately, as I've mentioned before, I have a special kind of personality that gets in the way of just enjoying things for what they are. And at the end of the day, I have more fun deconstructing things than I do with the initial experience. My initial Skyrim experience went for about 30 hours before I picked Morrowind back up. Revisits with light modding took this experience of Skyrim, specifically the almost entirely vanilla. We call it Vanilla Plus because it has like a couple minor changes. That took me over 60 hours before I started re-rolling new, heavily modded Skyrim loadouts. I don't regret any of this. It was all extremely fun, although for different reasons than those that make Oblivion, Morrowind, or Daggerfall as experiences fun. Finally, Skyrim is so streamlined that it's more like a first-person hack-and-slash simulator than any semblance of the CRPGs that originally inspired the Elder Scrolls series in the first place. If you're looking for a better hack-and-slash first-person game than the Elder Scrolls, check out Mordhau or Chivalry. No, Dark Souls combat is a completely different genre of combat, does not apply. I'm not saying the Elder Scrolls needs to be Mordhau or Chivalry, but clearly, combat itself cannot be the sole focus of an Elder Scrolls game. The combat is simply too lacking for that to make a game of any substance. I mean, Skyrim's such a mess. If you're looking for better story or world building, there are countless better CRPGs that kick Bethesda's ass every day of the week. Baldur's Gate, Icewind Dale, Planescape Torment, Neverwinter Nights expansion packs, or hell, let's use a just crazy example like JRPGs such as Legend of Heroes Trails in the Sky that does world building far better than modern Bethesda has demonstrated the ability to do. Now, world building is not to be confused with world design, or as we better know it, level design. World building's a writing term. Most of Tamriel's initial world building was done in Daggerfall, material that came with Elder Scrolls Adventures Redguard, retconned a bunch of stuff, and really filled in the way the world was supposed to be. And finally, Morrowind solidified what everyone, expected Tamriel to be before Oblivion and Skyrim trampled all over it. Obviously, the games that came after Morrowind would directly contradict what we've heard before. Retroactive continuity changes or retcons are absolutely nothing new to the Elder Scrolls series. However, my problem is that they are not living up to the potential of the material they're drawing from. When they choose to replace things, they almost universally replace it with something that is inferior, and that is sad. Now, most of the Elder Scrolls fans who fancy themselves part of the lore community don't see this as a criticism, but rather a challenge to piece together the disparate, broken elements of storytelling and create one large continuity out of it. I shared this notion for a time until the process of story critique became more important as a way to improve my own stories. Looking at Tamriel with a critical eye, coupled with what they've said in interviews in the past, it's very clear that the developers of the Elder Scrolls series, the ones who were in the Skyrim era, do not care about continuity beyond explaining the way their current stories work. And if that means changing the lore of the Dark Brotherhood, so be it. It means changing the lore of dragons, so be it. It means changing the lore of the Thu'um, which was not dragon shouts, so be it. If it means changing the pantheon of gods and not using other lore that already exists, so be it. The history of Tamriel is really, really cool, but it's pretty clear that the current developers have no ambition to actually live up to the history in their current game design. This means that Tamriel itself has little inherent value in the long run outside of each individual game. And each game is best thought of as a bubble universe that encapsulates the world building of that specific game and the lore of that specific game. This mentality makes the fiction of each individual game work without breaking the setting fundamentally. Now keep in mind, no matter how much I disparage the state of storytelling and continuity at Bethesda Game Studios, Blizzard Entertainment has done much worse. We'll talk about them another time because I actually have personal history with them. Now that I've talked about the bad, let's give Bethesda Game Studios some credit. I'd have to say its world designers deserve praise. I loved roaming around the wasteland of Fallout 76, even though I'm not a fan of that game. For those who don't know, the Bethesda Game Studios proper team, that is to say the one under Todd Howard, they only did the world design or level design of Fallout 76. The rest of Fallout 76 was done by a splinter office, formerly known as Battlecry Studios, who that was absorbed into the Bethesda corporate entity. What do I mean by the value of world design? It's like having a really good Gary's Mod level or a pre-built Minecraft server. Under the right circumstances, they can greatly enhance the experience over the stock experience. The thing is, both Gary's Mod and Minecraft have solid systems for having fun on their own. But with a good world surrounding you, it can really accentuate that level of fun you can have. With Bethesda Open Worlds, it really is about that sandbox first and foremost. And we have to give Bethesda Game Studios level designers their due for making that possible. Using their work as a base, I quickly learned I could customize the gameplay experience by installing mods. Skyrim would never be a proper classic role-playing game or CRPG, no matter how much I tried to force it into shape. So rather, I used mods to enforce very particular play styles, and I enjoyed doing live streams and videos and things as these different characters that had extreme quirks, like a completely different spell system. Say this particular character only had, say, 6 frost spells, and they all synergized in different ways. It felt very Diablo in that sense. By the way, Diablo 2 didn't have synergy skills on release. It was patched into the game later. We'll talk about that another time. What I'm getting at is, from the original 30 to 60 hours of gameplay, and this is not an exaggeration, I tacked on almost 2,000 hours of modded experiences, not counting setup time, by creating these different little demi character classes, by changing the rules by which the character was able to play. It doesn't make Skyrim an RPG, not in the classic CRPG kind of route, but it definitely made it enjoyable. But it really comes down to, why do you play a game and what do you derive enjoyment from? And I'd say kind of creating my own classes and reforging the game to be different gives Skyrim a lot of enduring value that you won't find in other games like it. I mean, this leads us to an interesting place where we get 2 conflicting sets of voices on the internet. I mean, when do we not have that? But seriously, the first group says Skyrim doesn't need mods, which I'd say technically yes, but then I would have played it for 30 to 60 hours and quit, never to come back. I love The Witcher 3 as a standalone short-term experience. I found more value in those 60 to 80 hours of The Witcher 3 than in anything else Bethesda has ever put out, including a game I put 2,000 hours into. That said, I do not feel the compulsion to go back to The Witcher 3. Much like Nier Automata or Xenogears, I think back on these amazing experiences I've had, glad I had those experiences, and that's it. I have zero desire to boot up those games again and do another playthrough at this point in time. Not to say I won't get the itch to do it next year or next week or even tomorrow. But right now, at the time making this video, I don't. And yet, those experiences were definitively more impactful than my 2,000 hours in Skyrim. There's something to be said for short, to-the-point experiences that you enjoy, and then you never feel the need to return to. Then there are live services that are made to be played forever, like The Elder Scrolls Online or Fallout 76. These live services tend to be, but are not always, more shallow than the more direct experiences that you enjoy and then leave. Open world sandbox games by Bethesda Game Studios, they feel like they're somewhere in the middle. If you don't rush your questing and you don't engage in constant fast travel use, games can take upwards of 100 hours to play, maybe even more. Throw on quest mods, they can take you even longer as you deal with expanded dialogue systems, new quests, new lands, all kinds of things. Remember when I said there were 2 groups of people online? The first saying you don't need mods? Well, the second group, I hear these people more because they tend to be in my circles. They tend to be people who mod Bethesda games because, you know, I tend to mod Bethesda games a lot. So I get these people who try to argue to me that, there's no toxicity in the Elder Scrolls modding community. Yikes. Oh boy. We're not going to touch on that today. Maybe another time. But the second point I usually get, and I may have said this a couple times myself, which is incorrect, but it's an easy mentality to fall into. It's the notion that these games need mods, that they are required to fully enjoy. The Elder Scrolls in modern Fallout The Elder Scrolls in modern Fallout fill an open world sandbox niche. The sandbox itself has immense value and rapidly changes how you experience the game. When people talk about a new land mod, saying that it's better than vanilla Skyrim, unless they're talking about Enderil, most of the time they're talking about an idea of a new land mod. The feeling that a new land mod gives them, not the tangible list of critiques that come with that new land mod. They focus on one specific element that they like and are willing to ignore all of the other things those land mods do worse or even poorly. I've often said that Vigilant Act 4 is the best experience I've ever had in Skyrim. Having played through that mod completely twice, and partially more times than that, I still think it's true. But the production values of that mod, of almost all mods to be honest, are questionable. Acts 1 through 3 are simultaneously all horrible, but also are required to understand the gravity of what's going on in Act 4. So whilst it is possible to skip directly to Act 4 using special functionality the mod author built into the mod, you wouldn't get the story context and the build-up for doing Acts 1 through 3. It's a mess to say the least, and I have very strong memories attached to it despite that. It's very easy to argue that in many respects, Vigilant Act 4's Cold Harbor is superior to Elder Scrolls Online's Cold Harbor. Without knowing the lore of Cold Harbor from earlier Elder Scrolls lore books, without understanding Molag Bal as he was presented in the lore, without the knowledge of Skyrim the video game that you've been playing this whole time, if you looked at two videos, one of ESO's Cold Harbor and the other of Vigilant's Cold Harbor, you'd say the Vigilant one looks like shit. Why would you ever say this one's better? And that's because there's a lot of quality in the concept of Cold Harbor that is not fully realized within its mod incarnation. And so playing through it, imagination takes over, and you're able to, as they say, get immersed. The flaws kind of bleed away and you forget about them. Thankfully, I record all my shit, so I'm able to go back and look at it again. But I would not fault a single person for believing that Vigilant is a much better mod than it is. And I think this is true with a lot of mods. Certain aspects, or even just concepts inside of them, we wish were integrated into Skyrim at a professional level. Something that would have been done by Bethesda Game Studios themselves. And the potential of that happening leads people to a state where they will state publicly that those mods are better than vanilla Skyrim, even though you look at them and they aren't. When I go back and cringe at the Dark Brotherhood of Old mod, it definitely would lead me to argue that more is not necessarily better. But there is still a compelling case for wanting to add hundreds of hours of content to an existing Skyrim run. Legacy of the Dragonborn accomplished it in a way that makes me very glad Ice Cream Assassin, the mod author, made it. It's very hard to find someone who unironically believes that mods are not needed in Skyrim, and yet simultaneously continues to play Skyrim from, over these 10 years. Of course, now that I've said that on the internet, we will get a bunch of people talking about this video who do still play Skyrim and don't use mods. That's just how the internet works. Speak of them and they will appear. However, I found that the majority of people who argue against modding in Skyrim have played it, have enjoyed it, and have moved on. They say things like, let Skyrim die, or why do you keep bringing this up? Or, yeah, I should play that again sometime. They fondly remember their short time in that experience. Many of them have come back to the game when it was released on Switch and have since left again. And they'll be back for that anniversary edition. and they'll be satisfied with the additions that the anniversary adds. But those people are not me. Go check out the previous video for discussion on that. Modern Bethesda game studios should be commended for being able to create games like Morrowind, Oblivion, Fallout 3, Skyrim, Fallout 4, and spectacularly dividing their player base with each and every entry, alienating and disenfranchising hardcore fans with each entry. Oh, you're a Morrowind fan? Get ready to hate Oblivion. Oh, you're an Oblivion fan? Get ready to hate Skyrim. Oh, you're a Fallout 3 fan? Get ready to hate Fallout 4. I was disappointed with Oblivion's story. I was disappointed with Fallout 3's world building. I was disappointed with Skyrim's lack of CRPG elements and general disrespect for the lore. I was disappointed with Fallout 4's lack of skills. I could go on and nitpick every single game. There's always something I'm disappointed about. But all of these games have really good sandboxes to explore, and perfectly serviceable systems that if you're willing to buy into them, you can have a little fantasy life in for a while. So the value of modern Bethesda game studios is its ability to create these sandboxes, as detailed and traversable as they are, and then open the floodgates to change it to be how you want. I'm not talking about open lore interpretations or other nonsense excuses for bad writing that the community employs. No. I'm talking about mechanically, allowing you to mod the game as you see fit, allowing you to use the command console as you see fit. They invite you into a sandbox whose world is expertly crafted. Some people might complain about the textures, but you can change those. Some people might complain about the follower system, but you can change that. So on and so forth. Some people complain about the main quest, and I hear a mod is trying to change that. The trailer showing romance kind of made me cringe a bit, but I'm not going to prejudge the experience. I'll give it a try. Point is that there's already a mod in production for the main quest that's going to replace it. So yeah, Bethesda created this extremely detailed sandbox and allows you to break it in any way you want. That's the value of Bethesda game studios. Fallout 76 can charitably be thought of as the game former Battlecry Studios made to keep the Fallout IP refreshed while they're busy on Starfield. Or, cynically, it can be seen as the trajectory that Bethesda Game Studios is on as a whole. Only time will tell. Thank you all for watching. I guess we should talk about Fallout 76, shouldn't we? I'll see y'all next time.